Rumors suggest Hackett has a good chance of being the Jets' new offensive coordinator, and a whole lot of speculation around Aaron Rodgers.
Jets, Jets, Jets! Dan Quinn should have gotten the Denver job last year. He was certainly one of the finalists, but when you look at it, they wanted an offensive mind because they knew they were going to have a quarterback, and they wanted that coach to work with the quarterback. And it wound up being Nate Hackett, who I'm told has probably got a very good chance, if he wants to be the Jets offensive coordinator, though they're looking at two other guys, plus I'm told some potential coaches that are still in the playoffs.
Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Guys, that was Adam Kaplan of Fox Sports talking about the possibility of a good chance that Nathaniel Hackett is going to be the Jets' new offensive coordinator. They're also looking at two other candidates. The audio is a little weird there. I don't know if they're looking at two other candidates plus guys that are in the playoffs currently, or if the two candidates they're also looking at are still in the playoffs. Either way, Nathaniel Hackett being the Jets' new offensive coordinator, if that's the route they choose to go, there's going to be a ton of connections with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers because he was the former offensive coordinator for Rodgers over in Green Bay. Now, the other coaches, I speculate, they could be talking about Petula and Brian Johnson, the two Eagles quarterback coach and passing game coordinator. They may be the two guys that they're talking about in the playoffs that the Jets could be in on, but we'll kind of wait and see. I don't want to speculate too much on that because we've heard so many different names at this point. But I want to talk about the idea of Hackett and pairing him with Rodgers, because we heard earlier this year Woody Johnson will absolutely spend what it takes to upgrade the quarterback position. This is something that Jet fans are over the moon about. We've seen, the quarterbacks get drafted and flame out, and we saw how much production and skill is on this team, and we just need the quarterback. So we got to get that figured out. So there's that. The other piece of this separate article from the clip you just heard, this is coming from Peter King of NBC Sports. Peter King says the fate of Aaron Rodgers, Adam Schefter reported Saturday, was with very little couching. That's a weird word. Maybe coaching about the 39-year-old Rodgers' future. That it's a real possibility Aaron Rodgers is going to be traded in the offseason. Schefter often puts governors and conditions on his reports, but not so much about this one here with the Packers starter for the past 15 years. Make no mistake, both sides are fully aware that a trade is very real this offseason for Aaron Rodgers, says Schefter. The possibilities are delicious. Rodgers to the Jets may be reteaming the X-Pac with Nathaniel Hackett, who has interviewed for the New York Jets offensive coordinator job, or Rodgers to the Patriots, which seems very Belichickian, to perhaps give Mac Jones 2 years learning in the shadows. Or Rodgers to Vegas if Tom Brady doesn't go there, or Rodgers to Seattle, 7th in cap room, all that good stuff. For that section right there, I don't see Seattle. I think they're going to bring back Geno Smith. Also, I don't think they want to keep him in conference. Tom Brady, I do think, goes to Vegas, so I don't think that's really going to be an option. I do think the Packers situation with Mac Jones is eerily similar to the Jets situation with Zach Wilson, with the exception of Mac Jones has shown more than Zach Wilson at this point. I don't think Rodgers is going to want to follow Brady because that's kind of Brady's town. If he comes to New York, he's paving his own way, and he's going to put the team and the city on his back. I think New York kind of gears itself a little bit better here. It goes on. How possible is it? Well, consider that Rodgers' cap numbers in the next 2 seasons would be $48.3 million combined, because when he's traded, there's a whole bunch of cap fluctuation things that happen. I will go into that in just a moment. That certainly is manageable. As for the compensation due to Green Bay, my guess would be the Pack would want at least 2 first-round picks. The Woody Johnson Jets, desperate for a star quarterback since Broadway Joe days, would happily pay that freight, I'd guess. But would Rodgers accept a deal to the New York Jets? We shall see. So I do think Rodgers would accept a deal with the New York Jets, provided he wants to continue playing. I do think he wants to continue playing because he has $60 million guaranteed if he decides to continue playing. So why would the Packers move on from him? Obviously, they have Jordan Love waiting in the wings. They could go that route and then get whatever they can get for Aaron Rodgers, because it looks like, given some of the players in the Packers cap situation, they're going to lose some of the guys that Rodgers wants to retain, and it just may make more sense for them to go in a different direction at this point in time, and Rodgers can go ring hunting somewhere else. So like I mentioned before, if you wind up trading for Aaron Rodgers, his contract is very interesting. His 2023 cap hit for us, if traded and you exercise his option, which you would all do because he is continuing to play, $15.79 million for 2023, $32.54 million in 2024. Those are both very manageable cap numbers. Assuming he retires after those 2 years, that would put him at like 41, 42 years old. The Jets would get hit with a $60 million dead cap hit that following year in 2023 or 2025. So you can plan on taking that entire hit in that year, or you can, hope he retires or ask him to retire after June 1st. Then you spread that cap hit over 2 seasons and it'll be $30 million in 2025, $30 million in 2026. But regardless, that's the dead cap hit that's coming with an Aaron Rodgers contract. Now, these cap figures are not overly concerning, so you'll be able to build around your team. And one of the big issues with having to potentially fork over 2 first-round picks is you're going to lose that number 13 pick that you so desperately want to spend on a left tackle, or at least fans seem to think that that's probably the way the Jets will wind up going. So there's some free agents that could come with Aaron Rodgers. Left tackle David Bakhtiari is due to be a $28 million cap hit for the Green Bay Packers. More so than likely, he's getting cut, so he could follow Rodgers. He's been mentioned. So Douglas does not have a fear in older left tackles either. I think Bakhtiari is going to be 31 years old or so. And we've seen him bring in Morgan Moses. We've seen him bring in Dwayne Brown. We've seen him, with the Eagles have Jason Peters, who's at 41 years old, just played for the Cowboys. So I don't think he's afraid of the old offensive tackle as long as he can get the job done for that year. You don't have, as long as you're not overly committing to him, you don't want to commit to a bad contract or anything like that. But you can bring him in. That solves your left tackle situation on that side. Wide receiver, it looks like Corey Davis and Braxton Berrios are probably going to be cap casualties because of the Jets cap situation. So you bring in free agent Alan Lazard, a 6'5" receiver that meshes very well with a slot receiver in Elijah Moore, your number 1 wide receiver in Garrett Wilson on the outside, and now you have that other dynamic body structure in a 6'5" Alan Lazard that replaces that need for a Corey Davis. And I think that is a very nice top 3 receivers. And then Rodgers also likes Randall Cobb. You're going to need a backup slot if you wind up moving on from Braxton Berrios. Cobb, while older, could at least provide you that backup option there. Now, what would a trade kind of look like? Because for me, the concern with Rodgers, if it's 2 first-round picks, is he going to retire after this year? It's very possible he plays 1 season, just decides he's done, and he's just like, all right, I'm hanging it up. The next city didn't work. I'm tired. I went through the whole process. Just going to hang it up after this year. Well, for me, a trade, I have no problem giving up the number 13 pick for this year. I have no problem giving up a first-round pick in 2024, provided that he plays. So the way I would structure this would be almost similar to the Favre deal, where it's a third-round pick that you send them for the player, but in this case, you're definitely sending the first and a third in 2024. So the conditional pick in 2024 would be, hey, if Rodgers decides to play in 2024, you know what? It goes from a third-round pick to a second-round pick. If the Jets make the playoffs, now remember in the Favre deal, the Jets made the playoffs, it would be a second-round pick. If they got the Super Bowl, it would be a first. In this case, with Rodgers, you make the first-round pick happen if the Jets make the playoffs in 2024. I'm okay with that because with Rodgers on the roster, you're assuming that you have those 2 years for Super Bowl, and there's, I don't have a concern. I don't have a concern with Rodgers. Keep him on the roster. And who cares about picks, right? You're going all in. Now, the 2025 dead cap hit is an interesting thing to talk about as well, because you're looking at the contracts that are coming up. Quinnen Williams is going to have to get paid a lot of money this year. Unless they're planning to send him over in the package for Rodgers, which I would not advise. You're planning to renegotiate him at some point. Now, like I said, Rodgers' cap hits don't necessarily hurt you too bad until that 2025 year. So it depends where the Jets are. That 2025 year also, based on where our rookies and young players are, that's the year that you'd have to try and re-sign someone like an Elijah Moore and the other guys from the 2nd through 7th rounds of the 2020 draft. You would be looking to extend players. Zach could be on his 5th-year option, and Elijah Vera Tucker most likely will be on his 5th-year option that year. So you may go into a season where you're try and figure that out or extend them. That's the pressure point that would be on that particular 2025 campaign. Now, the salary cap is expected to absolutely explode in the next year or so with the TV contracts kicking in, so it may not really be an issue at this point, especially if quarterbacks continue to get paid over these next few years. I mean, heck, $60 million a year right now is what Lamar Jackson is trying to get on an annual average salary, or, well, $50 million, but, $60 million dead cap hit, maybe not so large in 2 years' time. So the Jets can take on the cap hit. You can bring in Aaron Rodgers, and you allow Zach to grow. And I mentioned before, Zach could be on his 2025 fifth-year option. Sorry, let me go back to this. Going back to the rookies and the other players you're going to have to resign. You're talking Sauce, Garrett Wilson. This is Breece Hall going into the final year of his deal in 2025. So there's going to be, because remember, you had him 2022, 23, 24, 25 would be the final season. So you'll have money after that dead cap year to go after and resign Breece Hall, Michael Clemens, things of those natures. And then you have an additional year for Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, because they have their fifth-year options. Now, that does probably require you to do a little bit of dancing around contracts, because if Sauce continues to play at an all-pro level, he should absolutely get paid before his fifth-year option. But again, you can extend it and have those fifth-year options and those cap hits that are so favorable hit on those years, and then have the extension kick in a little further down the line when maybe you have either a rookie quarterback or more cap space to kind of figure this whole thing out. I really like this option. And I mentioned Zach's fifth-year option because of what happened in Green Bay. Green Bay never really saw a whole lot of Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Last offseason, they decided to exercise Jordan Love's fifth-year option without him really starting. We saw a little bit this year. So it begs the question, would the Jets possibly kick in Zach's fifth-year option? If you had told me, a month ago, I'd probably say no. But kind of looking back over everything, let's say Rodgers plays for 2 years. You have to decide May 2024 if you're going to exercise Zach's option. So before the second year of Rodgers on the Jets is when you'd have to decide that you're going to pay Zach in 2025. I like this because you're going to have a full year of seeing Zach behind the scenes. And even if you exercise it, that fifth-year option is only guaranteed for injury. So Aaron Rodgers, someone who has played every game for the past 5 years, would just have to not get hurt, because then you'd be exposing Zach Wilson to potential injury and then being on the hook for that fifth-year option. So that's kind of like the only hiccup here. But if you saw 2 years of Zach Wilson behind the scenes and he didn't have to start and risk injury, then you would be able to cut him after his fourth season, because you have that flexibility of not worrying about injury. Now, the second Rodgers potentially goes down, now you do have to worry about having to pay Zach Wilson that fifth-year option. And if he stinks, then that's not good. Then you have to you make sure you have a good backup quarterback so you don't get put on the hook for that final, $30 million or whatever his fifth-year option is going to end up being. But it's actually not as dire as I would have thought, because now you go into 2025 with Zach on that fifth-year option, and if you have seen enough, then you have your quarterback option. I mean, for Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, Rodgers is the perfect sort of situation. You have some insight, being that you've already talked to the Nathaniel Hackett. You have some insight, being that you're best friends with Matt LaFleur, so I think there's probably some conversations happening there. Sending Rodgers to the opposite conference is another huge thing for the Packers, not to mention the after effects of having potentially a Super Bowl or the media attention in New York from Aaron Rodgers. I really think this guy loves the attention, and I think he's setting himself up for a broadcasting career after the fact, and looping in the entire fan base of New York might be pretty solid. I mean, this guy, if he wins New York a Super Bowl, he will be held on shoulders and loved forever. I mean, look how we talk about Namath. We love the guy. He could do no wrong. The guy brought us the Super Bowl, and he has the key to the city. Now, we need Aaron Rodgers, who could be wearing number 12, because Joe Namath said he would allow Rodgers to wear number 12. Maybe we have 2 number 12s in our Ring of Honor. That would be absolutely, absolutely amazing. So, guys, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Would you trade 2 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers? Do you want to team him up with Nathaniel Hackett? Do you think this should be the Jets' plan A because they get to see what they have in Zach Wilson? Or do you think the Jets should, maybe go the Derek Carr route or a Lamar Jackson route? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets. Jets!